Let's see what this is. It has no likes, no dislikes, 14 views. So we're early on. We're in the Century Club, fam. We're in the first 100 views of this video. We get to be perhaps the first to debunk this dinosaur hoax video.
All right, let's talk about some dinosaurs. So,
oh no, he has a shelf full of books, but he doesn't believe in dinosaurs. I can't read. I don't think his resolution is high enough to see what the books are. It's always interesting to see what books these people read. Because you know a lot of them are like conspiracy books, which explains how they like got to where they are.
Dinosaurs, this should give you a red flag. Most dinosaur bones discovered are highly radioactive. Most dinosaurs' bones discovered are highly radioactive. Because of this, the bones displayed in the museum are covered with heavily leaded paint.
What is that article from? For one thing, when you go into a museum and you see a dinosaur skeleton, 9 times out of 10, and there are exceptions to this, some museums do actually show the real bones. I believe the Philadelphia Museum of Natural History includes an actual skeleton of a T-Rex, but 9 times out of 10, if you go into a natural history museum and you see a preserved skeleton of some sort of dinosaur, it's made up of replicas. They usually cast the fossils because it would be dangerous to keep these like priceless artifacts out in the open where anyone could do anything to them or they could collapse or crazy stuff could happen. Thank you to Deep Southern Man for hosting. Appreciate that. So yeah, most of them are casts. It's all based on real fossils that have been found, but fossils are relatively delicate, and not to mention rare and invaluable, so they don't want to just leave them out in public where people can do crazy stuff, especially when there are people like this out here who might like do a weird thing where they're like, dinosaurs aren't real, and they'll run into the museum with a baseball bat and try and smash it up or something. Who knows? The point is, it's a replica most of the time, but that doesn't mean it's not based on real fossils that do exist. There are videos on YouTube showing how they make the casts, and they talk about why they do it. It's quite interesting. But again, we're not really going to get into the actual cool stuff today. Today we're here to look at weirdos like this who think dinosaurs aren't real. The article's from a site called Truth is Scary. Oh, God.
Mainstream scientists explain...
Daddy Sume with 10 bits says, if Animal Crossing has taught me anything, fossils are hella common and really cheap to sell and buy. Stop lying, Hannah. The first thing I do, I love in Animal Crossing, my favorite thing is filling up the museums. So I had the fossil room filled up within like a couple weeks because I do time traveling in Animal Crossing, so I don't have to wait. I'm very impatient. Fulmare says, from a blog from the Houston Museum of Natural Science, quote, it may sound too weird to be true, but some dinosaur fossils can actually be radioactive. Not enough to harm you, but enough to be picked up by a Geiger counter. In fact, some can be pretty hot. But now that I've let you know that this crazy internet fact is actually true, it is unfortunately time for me to explain that radioactivity in fossils really isn't anything special. So it's probably radioactive at levels like in the same way bananas are radioactive. Like, yes, they're technically radioactive, but not enough to hurt you in any way. Unless you're literally, like, sleeping with a dinosaur bone under your pillow. I don't know. Don't dino bones become stone, like in nature, over time? That's what a fossil is. A fossil isn't literally the bone of a dinosaur, because bones don't last that long. Fossilization is a process by which the living material in the bone is replaced by rock. So it's effectively a stone casting of the bone made naturally. It's a phenomenally interesting subject. But again, today we're not here to talk about how cool fossilization is. We're here to talk about why these people think dinosaurs don't exist.
There's nothing funny about the
Mock Turtleneck says, the reason that dinosaur fossils can be radioactive is because they come from the ground, and radioactive elements are a common component of soils and rock formations all over the Earth. In fact, 50 to 80% of the heat warming the Earth's core is created by the decay of radioactive elements. Took 2 seconds to Google. It's interesting. Calcification or mineralization? No idea. I just know bone turned to rock. That's what I know about it. Daddy Sume with 10 bits. So Dr. Grant 100% got cancer from that velociraptor claw he carried around everywhere. Seems like it, yeah. Seething Cheetah says time traveling is valid. I, too, am impatient, yeah.
Explain this phenomenon by citing elemental uranium deposits in Colorado and Wyoming. These deposits were formed during the Jurassic Age. The radioactivity is generated from sandstones found
I
in
love
the
when
region.
these people laugh at completely reasonable statements. I think it shows where their head's at. Like, they're not here to learn or to try and gain a better understanding. They're laughing at stuff and saying that incredulousness is an argument, and just laughing at things that counts as an argument, because they're not here to learn. They just want to feel superior to the scientific community, and it's very strange. I don't get it.
Yeah.
And because I even talk about this. I'm not an expert in any field. I'm just some asshole on the internet. But, like, the stuff that science does are cool. It doesn't make me feel insecure, but apparently it makes people like this feel insecure and feel the need to try and debunk this shit so they can feel better than scientists. It's very, very odd. Dude Spanking Dude says, next, can we do my site? Sure.
Okay, that
Where are the glasses for the bones? Oh, no. The bones!
is complete bullshit. So, and then I'll just continue,
The bones!
and then we'll get really into it. To explain the pervading
bones.
evidence of radioactivity during ancient times, scientists at NASA, by the way, they claim these bones are 60 million years old. You can still, right after Pearl Harbor, people didn't leave the city. There were still trolley cars operating. That's a whole other story.
What? What does that have to do
Gamma
with this?
rays ain't what they say they are. To explain the pervading evidence of radioactivity during ancient times, scientists at NASA and the University of Kansas claim that gamma ray bursts could have facilitated mass extinctions that would have remodeled our atmosphere. This is, by the way, this is mainstream science. This is not Nat Geo. Everybody reports on this. This is what they say. And then we'll get into the history of dinosaurs. A gamma ray burst consists of sudden explosion of a nearby star that may well have depleted half of Earth's atmospheric protective ozone layer. And as Time magazine said, the ozone layer was disappearing because of hairspray. That's my commentary, if you're just listening. A gamma ray burst originating within...
The ozone layer was disappearing due to certain chemicals that were put in aerosolized products. But sometime in the 80s or 90s, we banned the biggest causer of that, and the hole in the ozone layer actually has been healing itself over time.
Chlorofluorocarbons.
What?
Chlorofluorocarbons.
Floral...
No, chlorofluorocarbons.
Chlorofluorocarbons. What about them?
That's what was killing the ozone in the hairspray.
Oh, that's what was killing the ozone, but they banned it, so now the hole is healing itself. Now we gotta deal with global warming, but that's a completely separate issue. Okay. We're talking about the bones! Dinosaur bones. You think he's gonna transvestigate these dinosaurs?
If it haunts?
No.
Probably not.
That's a shame.
6,000 light years. By the way, always watch out for sixes. Right now they say the Earth is spinning around the sun at 66,000 miles an hour. What's the tilt of the Earth? 66.6 degrees.
Okay. And...
Can't make this shit up.
let me see. Let me double check those. Speed of Earth. That way we can get, like, rotation and other stuff. The surface of the Earth at the equator moves at the speed of 460 meters per second, roughly 1,000 miles per hour. This covers a route at the speed of nearly 30 kilometers per second, or 67,000 miles per hour. So this says 67. They're probably rounding. So it's not 66 like he says. Let me see. How fast is the Earth moving? Oh, continue with adblockerspace.com. God damn it. How fast are we spinning? Speed at the equator of 1,037 miles per hour. That's the rotational speed. 67,000 miles per hour. So this guy's completely misrepresenting because these say 67. He's saying it's 66. Probably because he thinks it's close enough to 66 and he can just lie. Oh, what degree are we tilted at? Earth's axis degree of tilt. Oops. God, I'm not typing well today. 23.5 degrees. What the fuck is he talking about? He's just pulling the 66 numbers out of his butt. It's 66.5 degrees to the ecliptic. Okay. So he's specifically looking at a very specific number because he's looking for sixes. I'm going to say that spurious symbology is evidence. Because I'd argue 66, while it is a number, is often used as, like, the mark of the beast, and that's symbology. We're going to get our Robert Langdon hats on, and be top-tier symbologists. It's a Da Vinci Code reference. I don't know if anyone's read the Da Vinci Code.
6,000 light years from Earth would have a devastating effect on life. This is from 2012. Now that much of the awakening is happening, does that trigger any...
Numerology is different. Numerology is using numbers to try and predict things. Like, psychically, almost.
Red flags to you of the likelihood of any truth? That a star 6,000 light years away, that's the distance light travels, is 186,000 miles per second, in a year, 6,000 light years away, that caused the... It's just so fucking stupid, guys.
Why is that stupid? What about what you just said is stupid?
All right. Gamma rays are the secret sons of the... Anyway, we don't know exactly when one came, but we're rather sure it did come and left its mark. What's more surprising is that just a 10-second burst can cause years of devastating ozone damage. Where's their evidence?
You can see, like, a GIF of the hole in the ozone layer. Ozone layer. Hole. GIF. You can see a GIF of it getting bigger and then closing over time. Do-do-do-do. Hole in the ozone layer. You can look this up yourself. It's not difficult. Do-do-do. Scientific evidence is hard to find on Google for some reason. Yeah. There you go. Bada bing, bada boom.
This is the beauty of not being a liar. Is as time goes on, you're proven more right, and the lies become so stupid that it's more of a joke than anything a comedian could write. Trust me, I'm a comedian.
Oh God, you're a comedian and you're a fucking dinosaur truther? No.
They're trying to tell you that they've done studies. This is Main Street. This is according to NASA and the University of Kansas. That a gamma ray burst originating within 6,000 light years from Earth would have a devastating effect on life. And what causes the extinction of these creatures with bones that you're never going to be able to see. I'll get to that.
The bones!
And one of the reasons they don't allow the public to see the bones is because they're radioactive, even though they were just dug up in Wyoming. And people were just there. But the bones, you see, are radioactive.
The bones! The radioactive bones!
It's like nuclear bombs. And you can't go near the bones or else you'll get cancer. Even though they just found the bones in a dude's yard. But before that, it was fine. It was...
Okay, certain radiation, depending on the kind of radiation that it is, can have very little penetrative ability, especially under a lot of soil. So if you have something that's radioactive and you bury it deep in the ground, then it's fine. Then it's safe because there's a barrier between you and it. It depends upon, again, the kind of radiation, and I'm not an expert on this shit, but this is like basic understanding of radioactive elements and how they work.
It's only when you examine them that they become radioactive. Just keep all this in mind as you're...
Do you understand that radioactivity reduces over distance and depending upon the things that are between you and it? Like, that's a basic thing with radiation. It's why you can wear, like, a radiation suit to go and deal with radioactive elements up to a certain point. Remember in, here's a movie reference. Remember Back to the Future at the beginning of the movie where they're putting the radioactive stuff in the DeLorean? And it's encased in this sort of suspended water element. That water probably has something in it, like lead, who knows, that's trying to reduce the radiation. And on top of that, they're also wearing suits, probably lead-lined suits, or lined with something else that blocks ionizing radiation. If you put things between you and radiation, whether it's enough distance or enough material to absorb that radiation, it is not a danger, and it completely depends upon what kind of radiation you're talking about and how much is being put off, right? The dinosaur bones are only barely radioactive, so they aren't a danger in the first place, and even if they were, they're buried. They're buried. It's fine. It's not a nuclear bomb. OCP. Burying is how we dispose of some radioactive waste. John Oliver taught me that, yeah. True.
Understanding what a dinosaur is. By the way, obviously dinosaurs never existed. We'll get to that. I know that hurts your feelings. I also...
It doesn't hurt my feelings. It's kind of funny that you think that. But, like, I have no... Again, these people assume we all have these emotional attachments to these things. If it came out tomorrow that dinosaurs were a different thing, you'd have to explain all the bones still. The bones! But it wouldn't matter to me. I don't care. It would be interesting to find out what the real explanation was, but I have no emotional attachment to the idea that there were dinosaurs on this planet 65 million years ago. Doesn't matter. It's just that the evidence shows that that is the case.
Love dinosaurs to the point where my mom made homemade stuffed animals of dinosaurs. I was obsessed. I wanted to be a paleontologist. I get it. I also was part of the mind control. But understand what these people are saying. Most dinosaur bones. Understand that they're claiming that they're 60, 70, 80 million years old.
Yes, that is a long period of time, and I understand that human brains have difficulty in comprehending that span of time. We really don't do very well with numbers above 100, much less fucking 1,000, 100,000, a million, a billion, whatever. So, tens of millions of years ago, it's hard to get your head wrapped around. But, nonetheless, that is what the evidence shows.
Million. And they just dig them up in a few areas that happen to be owned by very rich families or the Smithsonian.
What? No, people have found fossils in their backyards. Fossil found in backyard. 3 boys unearthed a fossil. Let's look at this. This is from Fox News, unfortunately, but hey, it's a thing nonetheless. So let's take a look at it. Bolivia, Mississippi. 3 boys unearthed a fossil that could be nearly 100,000 years old.
That took thousands of years.
Stop. 3 boys who are all avid baseball players never thought they'd take an interest into paleontology before the discovery, but after finding the mastodon fossil, they hope to learn more. The boys' parents say they're excited about the rare find. So this is 100,000 years old, but let's find an older one, because this has happened multiple times. Incredible finds in backyard gardens. Some of these are probably going to be the Michigan mammoth. This is a 10 to 15,000 year old human skeleton. That's going to be more recent dinosaur. September 2014, 4-year-old Wiley Briz was fossil hunting with his dad on the site of a new shopping mall in Mansfield, Texas, when he found something amazing amidst some fossilized fish vertebrae. Wiley uncovered a large piece of bone believed to belong to a group of land-dwelling herbivore dinosaurs called nodosaurs, which lived in the area around 100 million years ago. So people have found this shit. It's just that the people who are most equipped to know where to look are going to be paleontologists because they know the conditions that create fossils. So knowing those conditions helps you narrow down the areas where they may be. So let's say the Smithsonian or whoever is funding a certain paleontological organization knows that fossils tend to form in certain areas with certain soil compositions and certain factors in the past that would lead to it. They then buy property there in the hopes of finding stuff. Will they find stuff all the time? No, but more often than not, eventually they will find something because they know the conditions to look for in order to find those fossils. It's very simple. It's like asking, how do I put this? It's like asking, man, all those basketball players, they score all the baskets. Why can't my 4-year-old nephew shoot as many baskets as Michael Jordan? Because he's not an expert at shooting baskets. In the same way that you're not an expert at knowing where to look for fossils. Occasionally people will happen to stumble across them, and it's always cool when that happens. But experts in a field are going to be more proficient at doing the thing that they're supposed to do within that field.
And nobody before 1842 even theorized about dinosaurs. We'll get to that.
Oh, fuck. Ruth Bader Ginsburg hospitalized. Come on. There's only... You just gotta hold out for like 5 more months, Ruth Bader. Stop. Oh, God.
But if you find one of these bones, it's so radioactive that you're not allowed to inspect it or touch it. And when they show you the bones, you can't go near them. They have to be fake bones or covered in lead paint. If you believe that, your brain's fucked. Are you saying dino riders are...
What's fucked about it? Again, you're saying a lot of things about how you think it's fucked that people believe this, but you're not explaining what about it makes you incredulous.
All right, so yeah, everybody loved dinosaurs. Everybody wanted to go to the moon. I get it. Just all right. No, by the way, no one is currently allowed to examine a dinosaur skull because it isn't real. But anyway, this is a few...
Okay, you're not going to let randos from the street come up and touch and examine the Mona Lisa either. It's behind, like, bulletproof glass, right? The same thing, except, honestly, I think fossils are more valuable than stuff like that, but that's always going to be a subjective judgment. People can paint more beautiful pictures. They can't make more fossils of dinosaurs, right? So only people who are qualified to handle those fossils are allowed to do so because they are invaluable. You can go and look at replicas. In fact, there are websites. I've ordered fossil replicas before. They're very cool. They're a good way to get into like cool like fossil stuff without a ton of expense. Some of it can be a little expensive, but basically they take molds of the real thing and then you can get replicas, and they're very cool. I was gonna eventually plan on getting some hominid skulls because I find them so fascinating, but that doesn't change the fact that the real things exist and are being studied by people qualified to study them. For you and I, a replica will be more or less the same experience, right? If I have a replica of a hominid fossil, for instance, and I can touch it and look at it and see the dimensions, that more or less is the experience I'm going to get out of it. Because I don't know anything about, fossil composition, what different marks on the skull might mean, what different defects might mean about the society that they lived in or whatever. So, to me, it just matters that look, it's a cool thing, right? It's a cool piece of, like, history. A paleontologist, however, is going to know how to look at bones and what to look for to find out things about these animals. So it's valuable for them to have access to these things, and if they work for a university, presumably they do have access to these things. And even if you don't work for a university with a rather large collection of bones or whatever, you could probably petition to go to a place that does have one, like a museum or wherever, that might hold some fossils. And you can probably try and petition to get yourself in, provided, again, you have the credentials and the experience handling fossils, to go in and do some research. Let's say you're writing a paper on, I don't know, T-Rex eating habits, and you need to look at some T-Rex teeth. I feel like if you are a PhD paleontologist and you have the credentials and you're able to write a proposal, you could probably get permission from a museum to go into their archives and look at T-Rex teeth to try and learn more about their diet. I, however, cannot go and do that off the street, because why would I need to see real T-Rex teeth? Is it cool? Yeah, but I have absolutely no expertise in the field, right? It would be a waste of everyone's valuable time.
Facts I'd love for you to go check out. It gets... Sir Richard Owen is the first one who came up with the term dinosaur. When? 1842. Why? Because the Royal Society told him to.
Okay, they like to bring this up too, the dinosaur deniers. They'll be like, oh, in 1842, the word dinosaur didn't exist before then. Correct. 1842 was when the Royal Society came together and was like, oh shit, we have a ton of these bones. Let's try and understand what they are. And at that point, they came together with the pre-existing understanding that these bones had been found all over the world. These bones have been found for a long time. You can look into history, and some people even speculate that this is why dragon myths came to be, because people would find these bones, right, and wouldn't know what they are. So in 1842, the Royal Society of Science got together and was like, okay, let's decide what the fuck these things are. They looked at a bunch of the fossils, they tried to figure it out, and they decided to come upon the idea of, these are all dinosaurs, right? These are an extinct species. We don't know much about them, but we'll classify these all as dinosaurs so we can gain a greater understanding and sort of bring it all under one umbrella. We understand that they are probably some sort of creature that is similar to each other that don't exist today, but they didn't know much more. And of course, over time, our understanding of what dinosaurs are has changed. For instance, dinosaur, I'm pretty sure literally means great lizard. But of course, as we've discovered over time, dinosaurs, in fact, are much more closely related to modern-day birds than they are lizards. The image of dinosaurs in the past, for much of the history of our understanding of dinosaurs, was that they were these slow, cold-blooded reptiles. Nowadays, we understand that that probably isn't the case. They were faster-moving. They may have been warm-blooded. They're related to birds. So our understanding gets better over time, but just because the word dinosaur was coined in 1842 doesn't mean no one had found bones before then.
How do you know that? Because no one discovered a single dinosaur bone.
Terrible lizard, that's what it is, thank you. The direct translation of dinosaur is terrible lizard.
Or tooth until 1854 by a paleontologist named Hayden. Okay, so understand what that means. A knight who was part of the Royal Society came up with this idea called dinosaurs in 1842.
And is every paleontologist today still a member of the Royal Society? No.
Not because they found any bones or a tooth, but because he was told to. By who?
No. They already had bones and teeth and all sorts of fossils, and they were trying to come up with a general understanding of what these things were. Bones, fossils, have been found all throughout human history. That's a fact. Apparently this guy decided not to use Google at all for this video. It's just that in 1842 they started finally putting these things together, figuring out how to find fossils and where to look, and coming to a better understanding of what had been found previously.
Aldous Huxley's grandfather. How do you know that? His last name was Huxley. Why?
Okay, how is that relevant?
Why would they do that? Well, The Origin of Species came out in 1859, and they required...
Okay, that was later. That was later. An Origin of Species was written by Darwin.
A narrative to make it look like time on the Earth was way bigger than it ever was. So
what? Time on the Earth is much greater than young Earth creationists lead you to believe. The Earth is not 6,000 years old. We can use not radiocarbon, just radioactive dating, and the oldest rock, I believe, ever found on Earth is something like 4 point whatever billion years old, and that's how we know how old the Earth is at minimum, right? These things are verifiable.
What do? They create these giant, larger-than-life narratives called dinosaurs. No culture ever has ever found a dinosaur. But and another.
What? Oh God, making me look this shit up. Fossils found before 1840. What was it? 1843. History of Paleontology. Prior to the 17th century, as early as the 6th century BC, Greek philosopher Xenophanes of Colophon, I'm probably butchering that, 570 to 480 BC, recognized that some fossil shells were remains of shellfish, which he used to argue that there was a time the dry land was once under the sea. Leonardo da Vinci, 1452 to 1519, in an unpublished notebook, also concluded that some fossil seashells were the remains of shellfish. However, in both cases, the fossils were complete remains of shellfish species that closely resembled living species. They were therefore easy to classify. In 1027, the Persian naturalist Ibn Sina, known as Avicenna, I'm bad with names, in Europe, proposed an explanation how the stoniness of fossils was caused in the Book of Healing. He modified an idea of Aristotle's, which explained in terms of vaporous exhalations by Ibn Sina, modified into the theory of petrifying fluids, which was elaborated on by Albert of Saxony in the 14th century and was accepted by some form by most naturalists by the 16th century. Shen Kuo, the Song of Dynasty, used marine fossils found in Taihang Mountains to infer the existence of geological processes such as geomorphology and the shifting of seashores over time. Using his observation of preserved petrified bamboos found underground in Yan'an Shanbei, God, I'm bad with proper nouns, Shaanxi province, he argued for a theory of gradual climate change, since Shaanxi was part of a dry climate zone that did not support a habitat for the growth of bamboos. As a result, new emphasis on observing, classifying, and cataloging nature. 16th century natural philosophers in Europe began to establish collections of fossil objects as well as collections of plant and animal specimens, which were often stored in specially built cabinets to help organize them. Conrad Gesner published in 1565 work on fossils that contained one of the first detailed descriptions of such a cabinet and collection. The collection belonged to a member of the extensive network of correspondence that Gesner drew on for his works. Such informal correspondence networks, often natural philosophers and collectors, became increasingly important during the course of the 16th century and were direct forerunners of the scientific societies that would begin to form in the 17th century. These cabinet collections and correspondence networks played an important role in the development of natural philosophy. However, most 16th century Europeans did not recognize that fossils were the remains of living organisms. The etymology of the word fossil comes from the Latin for things having been dug up. As this indicates, the term was applied to a wide variety of stone and stone-like objects without regard to whether they may have an organic origin. 16th century, so basically, you get it. Fossils have existed for a long time and people have noticed them, right? Let me see if I can find. Well, that's still. Hylian Derp has an article that's in another blow to herd immunity. Study shows decline of COVID-19 antibodies after a few weeks. Oof. That's no bueno. Oldest, let's see. Oldest dinosaur. Hold on. Earliest recorded dinosaur fossil finding. I'm not looking for the oldest dinosaur, though. When was the first dinosaur discovered? That'll help. Adaptions from Dinosaurs, the very latest information on, and hands-on activities from the Museum of the Rockies, blah, blah. Way back in 1676, Robert Plot, the curator of an English museum, described and drew a thigh bone that he believed to belong to a giant man. Although that fossil disappeared without a trace, the surviving illustration suggests that it may have well been part of a megalosaurus. Later in 1822, large teeth discovered in England by Mary Ann Mantell and her husband Gideon were thought to be the remains of a huge extinct iguana. It wasn't until 1841 that the British scientist Richard Owen came to realize that such fossils were distinct from the teeth or bones of any living creature. The ancient animals were so different, in fact, that they deserved their own name. So Owen dubbed the group Dinosauria, which means terrible lizards. So as early as the 1600s, we have written records, but they were found prior to that, and I've read articles before. Oh, holy shit, the Surfs TV, thank you for rating. I appreciate that so much. That's amazing. Thanks. We're doing Tinfoil Tuesday. We're doing crazy conspiracy theories. Oh my goodness. Thank you all the people who are following. Thank you so much. We're looking at people who don't believe in dinosaurs. So, let's see what we got. So, 1676 we found the earliest record of dinosaur bones being found. Of course, there are theories that dragons in many mythologies were based around the finding of dinosaur bones prior to that, but again, that's just a hypothesis at this point.
Another reason they did it is the narrative of fossil fuels. So it's all a fiction story. All of it.
Dinosaurs are a globalist conspiracy.
1842.
Because it involves the planet, so it must be related, right?
A member of the Royal Society coined the term dinosaur without ever finding a single...
Raz Netdret says there was a bunch of mammoth fossils discovered in Greece. A mammoth skull has a giant hole in the front. It's for the soft bits of the trunk, but it looks like an eye hole. There's a theory that these skulls are the origin of the Cyclops myths. I actually do remember that because I had... You remember zoo books? There used to be ads for zoo books, like, hey, kids, get zoo books. Ninetales Cosmic Fox, thank you for subscribing. Thank you to everyone who's following, by the way. I really appreciate it. So, zoo books were a cool thing, and I remember reading one about elephants, and it included that skull of mammoths or skulls of elephants being used as a origin for the myth of the Cyclops.
Single bone or tooth. That's right. Then, in 54, Hayden discovers a tooth, and then from there it gets crazy. So then the Smithsonian, and then you have the banksters, and the in the future the Carnegie Institute, all this stuff. Here's a...
Did he just say the Carnegie Institute as the Carnegie Institute? Oh no. Again, I mispronounce things all the time, so that's not an ad hoc attack. I just find it funny.
Fact that might allow you to understand about what I'm saying is absolutely true.
The guy you're watching looks familiar. His channel name is Remember Lad. Subscribe to Big Bear. It might not be his... Hold on. This is Owen Benjamin. Is this the same guy? Let me look. They look pretty similar. So it might be this Owen Benjamin guy, but someone else uploaded his video to their channel.
Gravy comes from Dinosaur. That's hilarious. Gonna need some biscuits for all this gravy. Oh yeah, it's wild. All the dinosaurs.
He's drunk in many videos. Good. He'll be a great collection to my lol cow file.
Dinosaur bones in all the museums are all fake.
You're gonna need a source on that one. On what are you basing the fact that you think fossils are fake?
Why? Because they say the bones are radioactive.
Elaborate.
Why does that matter? Because when they started doing tests on a lot of the actual bones way back in the late 1800s, several people concluded that they were from elephants or whales.
Some of them may have been, because there was this thing. This is an interesting historical event. It's called the Fossil Wars. This was a thing between... Oh, the Bone Wars. Sorry, apologies. Oh, the bones we need to talk about. The bones.
There's nothing funny about
bones. Thank you, everyone who's following still. I really appreciate it. Anyway, we're talking about the bones. So the Bone Wars. The Bone Wars, also known as the Great Dinosaur Rush, was a period of intense and ruthlessly competitive fossil hunting and discovery during the Gilded Age of American history, marked by a heated rivalry between Edward Drinker Cope of the Academy of Natural Sciences of Philadelphia and Othniel Charles Marsh of the Peabody Museum of Natural History at Yale. Each of the two paleontologists used underhanded methods to try to outdo the other in the field, resorting to bribery, theft, and destruction of bones. Each scientist also sought to ruin his rival's reputation and cut off his funding using attacks in scientific publications. Their search for fossils led them west to rich bone beds in Colorado, Nebraska, and Wyoming from 1877 to 1892. Both paleontologists used their wealth and influence to finance their own expeditions and to procure services and dinosaur bones from fossil hunters. By the end of the Bone Wars, both men had exhausted their funds in the pursuit of paleontological supremacy.
That's right.
So this is actually really interesting. Paleontology was this hugely competitive field back in the day, right? I'd imagine it still is, in the sense that all scientific fields are more or less competitive. But this was a huge thing. I mean, it got to the point where literally once they got as much bones as they could from a site, because they couldn't carry anymore or whatever, because of course this is the 1800s and you need to be able to, oh yes, bingo link in the chat. We do a conspiracy bingo here, and if you play conspiracy bingo and you're the first person to get a bingo, I will gift you a sub. So play if you want, for fun or for keeps, whatever you'd like. So basically, if they were leaving a site because they had already gotten all the bones that they could load onto their cart, they would literally, and I'm not kidding, this is the most fucked up thing ever. Not ever, I'm exaggerating, but like it's a fucked up thing scientifically. They would destroy any bones, any fossils left at the site so no one else could get them. It was an incredibly competitive and underhanded period in paleontology. It's very interesting to look into. There are multiple YouTube videos on this you can check out later. It's a lot of fun. So there was this period where there were sometimes, again, falsified fossils, or fossils that were gotten so quickly that they were misattributed as different dinosaurs. We saw this with these two. Sometimes they would claim that like a baby version of a certain other dinosaur that was already discovered was a completely new species. Nowadays, we've more or less gotten to the point where we can categorize them all correctly, or more or less correctly, but back in the day, it was this crazy competitive thing. So yes, occasionally they did find fakes or things that were misclassified. That doesn't mean that all dinosaur bones are fake. It was a emerging science at the time with a ton of incredibly competitive people fighting to be the best paleontologist in the world, which led to, unfortunately, some forgeries. I think Piltdown Man was one of them, some misclassifications, and a lot of destruction of just innumerable artifacts that were invaluable and can never be returned. It's real sad, but it doesn't undermine the entirety of the community, right?
There is not a single dinosaur skeleton that exists. And here's another thing. Even the bones that exist and teeth that exist, no member of the public, none, is allowed to inspect them or look at them. They have to be members of universities or, funded by Carnegies or Rockefellers. You've never seen...
Okay, I'm gonna say, oh boy. Yes, science, unfortunately, within the society in which we live, under capitalism, typically requires some sort of patron. Whether that patron happens to be a university, or it happens to be someone like John Hammond, who's going to come and fund your dig site for 3 years as long as you come and give his new theme park a review. This is a reality of scientific research. That's why writing grant proposals is such an important thing in science, because unfortunately, you need to get someone with the cash to fund your research. It'd be nice if we had more publicly funded research that was more widely available and more grants, but nonetheless, we do live in a capitalist society, and as such, you still need to work within those bounds. And unfortunately, that can mean working for some rich asshole like John Rockefeller.
Seen a dinosaur bone. You'll never see a dinosaur bone. You're not allowed to. It's much like Antarctica. And the fossil fuel myth, which is a myth, it's not dinosaur bones degrading into oil. If you believe that, I don't know what to tell you. It's
most fossil fuels are actually the result of fossilized plant material, not dinosaurs. It's a misnomer. A lot of people think fossils, they think dinosaurs, therefore they think fossil fuels, they think dinosaur bones and dinosaur material turning into oil. No, much of that is plant material that has changed into oil over time.
Fucking retarded. So
that's a hard R word. Don't do that, bro.
They invent Aldous Huxley's grandfather as part of the invention of dinosaurs was Sir Richard Owen in 1842. The word never existed. The concept never existed.
Correct, but that doesn't make it untrue, right? It came to existence as a word because they came together and found all these old fossils and said, what are these things? We should probably classify them as something because it's something we've never understood before, right? Like, how do I put this? Here's another way of putting it. We were talking about Einstein and Tesla and Edison earlier. DC current and AC current didn't have names until they were discovered, right? That doesn't mean they're fake. Things that are newly discovered require names, like when DNA was discovered by whoever. I know it's Baja Blast is going to yell at me. Baja Blast, for people who are here new, is my girlfriend. She's a fourth-year PhD student. I'm Ben Shapiroing right now, talking about my almost doctor girlfriend. But she's going to yell at me because it wasn't actually Watson and Crick who discovered DNA. It was someone else, and then they got a lot of credit. But either way, let's pretend it's Watson and Crick for a second, okay? Watson and Crick named DNA. That doesn't mean DNA didn't exist before they had discovered it and named it. When you discover a new thing in science, you have to name it. That's one of the perks, if anything.
And then the first tooth was discovered in 1854. And then from there, anytime any
candidate, sorry, not student, I apologize, did I say student? PhD candidate, fourth year.
Bone was discovered, the Smithsonian would swoop in and take it. Why does that matter? Because they were never discovered. There is prehistoric bones. There is like woolly mammoths and saber-toothed tigers and weird-looking fish and stuff. No one...
Okay, but those are also hundreds of thousands of years old. Where do you draw the line? So you're not a young Earth creationist in the sense that you don't think the Earth is 6,000 years old, but you're also not someone who understands that the Earth is something like 4.6 billion years old. So where do you think the Earth began?
No one's ever found a dinosaur skeleton, ever.
Let's just do it. This is going to be the easiest Google search I've had to do all day. Dinosaur skeleton. The funny thing is he's almost right. He's almost right. No one has found a dinosaur skeleton because biological material does not last long enough. It doesn't last 60 million years, 100 million years. What we do have are dinosaur fossils. Fossilization is the process by which organic material is replaced by non-organic material over time. That's what fossils are, and we do have them. You can see them in pictures. You can see them in museums. If you've ever been to a natural history museum, they're there. These are often, as I mentioned earlier, casts of the fossils, but not always. The Philadelphia Museum of Natural History also has a... Let me look that up specifically. Philadelphia T-Rex. This T-Rex at the Philadelphia Museum, for instance, is, except for the skull, because the skull was too fragile and they weren't able to do that, so the skull is a cast. But the rest of it is an actual dinosaur. Actual dinosaur fossils, I should say. You can go see this.
It's all ridiculous. Oil is abiotic and continually renews.
Thank you, Andrew Dickerson, for continuing your subscription.
They said peak oil was coming in 1971.
I gotta read this because Baja Blast will probably be mad if I don't. Baja Blast says James Watson deserves nothing. He is a racist, sexist pig that has been stripped of many honors because of it. Fuck yeah. Fuck Watson.
That was before the industrialization of China and India. We're consuming more oil right now than any time in human history to a by a factor of 1,000.
Yeah.
And not only is oil not going down, more and more is being discovered.
Oh my goodness, this is a complicated subject. No, the supply of oil on the planet has not gone up. What has happened is that different techniques which are environmentally destructive, like fracking, have come about, unfortunately, which allows us to tap into kinds of oil that we were not able to reach previously. So, in a market sense, the overall amount of oil has gone up because it is accessible to us, but the oil was always there. It's just we couldn't get it before. We still shouldn't get it because fracking is awful for the environment and for the people who live around the area, but nonetheless, it is how it works.
And you might just say, oh, well, the technology's getting better to find oil.
Saying things like this isn't an argument!
Old oil wells that were dried up have refilled. Now
they're not refilled again with technology before. How do we put this? Okay, pretend that this cup is filled with oil, right? Let me look at two different things. This cup is an oil well, right? And pretend this is a straw. This straw represents the technology of 1936 or 1957, whenever. I could put this straw in here and suck up oil to this level, but the technology isn't quite there yet, right? To get the rest of the oil. Now let's say this is a straw representing the technology of today. I could now get all the oil because it goes all the way to the bottom, right? The cup didn't suddenly fill with more oil. I just have a greater ability to access the oil that's already there. Pretty simple.
Now, let's put on our thinking caps. And I don't mean to sound condescending. I'm trying to keep this funny. I'm not trying to be a dick, because you're probably smart. Do you think billions of dinosaurs died and decomposed sometime
True. I drink your milkshake!
Between 1950 and 1990
Movie reference.
or 2010, when they found more oil in the same exact well that had been emptied? No. Do you think that claiming that dinosaur bones are all radioactive, which is why they're trying to help the public by not
No. All dinosaur bones aren't radioactive. Some of them are.
allowing you to inspect them? You know, radioactivity, the thing that has never been found to ever exist in Hiroshima or Nagasaki or Chernobyl. You know, radioactivity, the thing that is complete fucking nonsense.
Oh, he doesn't believe in radioactivity either. Do you understand that radioactivity isn't an on-off switch? Bananas are radioactive. They're just very lightly radioactive in a way that is not harmful to us. What we are concerned about, rather, is large amounts of ionizing radiation, like gamma rays, the thing that gave Bruce Banner Hulk powers. That shit will not give you Hulk powers. It will, however, melt your fucking cells and destroy your cell walls or whatever. It's dangerous, but again, its danger is also relative to the levels involved.
My mom says I'm smart for an idiot. Oh, nice, Overbear. It's a painful process. Yes, they mix it with alcohol. I have seen Sue the T-Rex at the Field Museum in Chicago. She is 80% complete. All right, ask Dave. You're now banned because you don't have...
What a bold position, saying, actually, I've actually seen a fossil in the Fields Museum, the one that I was showing you earlier, and it's real. And he goes, ban. You bring me fucking proof? Ban.
I don't have a bear name. If you had a bear name, I wouldn't have banned you. I just explained. These aren't real bones. They're all fake bones. They don't allow you to see the real bones because of a nonsense lie that 60 million years ago, radioactivity infected the dinosaur bones. Okay? So what you're looking at is plaster created by some of the most powerful banksters and tycoons that have ever walked the planet.
I'd still like to know exactly how dinosaur bones are helping the capitalist agenda. Don't get me wrong, bud. If you want to get your boots on and you want to go out and start a revolution and you know, stop Jeff Bezos for, like, making up dinosaurs or something, hey, I'm on board. But How are dinosaurs helping the capitalist agenda? I'm kind of lost on that one. Is it just Jeff Bezos was just like, hey, you know, it'd be funny? I'm talking about 1840s Jeff Bezos. Jeffrey Bezosinus. I don't know. He took a Greek name for absolutely no reason in the 1800s. We will invent dinosaurs, and then the common people will no longer be allowed to form unions. Sir, what's the question? What's the connection between the bones and, union busting? The bones! We must, Filbert, away to the bone mobile. Stupid.
Them with a nonsense narrative created by Charles Darwin and then the Rockefeller family about fossil fuels and evolution, they all came together and they created this big fake thing called dinosaurs. And it's just endless bullshit that they can say to people who haven't seen how dumb it is.
Look at all these
You
bones.
can't ever inspect a dinosaur bone, ever. Big Bear makes me think. Earth produces oil, bones don't make oil.
This is my question to this guy. Him not being a paleontologist, let's say some museum somewhere for fun says, all right, dinosaur denier, come in, we'll let you hold a dinosaur bone. And they put a real dinosaur fossil in his hand. What's he gonna do with it? He has no fucking training. Is he gonna fucking take a piece of the bone and carbon date it? I doubt he knows how to do that. And even if they did that in front of him, he'd be like, you're lying. You're lying to me. Dude, you're just incredulous about this for no reason. You just don't believe it, and I don't know why. There's no motive to try and lie to you about dinosaurs.
Of course, bones don't make oil. If an extinct species 60 million years ago, and all this plant life that happened back then, it takes millions of years to rot and become a form of carbon, and then crude oil, and then, if that was the case, oil would be more valuable than diamonds. It would be more valuable than gold. It wouldn't be...
It is quite valuable.
...cheaper to buy than a gallon of water.
That was due to a variety of factors going on. If you're talking about recently when oil actually, like, oil futures went into the negative, and when that happened, they would pay, if you were like, I don't know, if you're a gas station company and you refine crude oil, I don't know if that's a thing gas station companies do. Whoever refines crude oil, they were actually paying people to come and take oil barrels off their hands because it cost more to close down the oil drills than it did to just keep them running and sell at a loss. Specifically because there was for one thing, coronavirus, so everything's shut down, so oil usage and gas usage is down. And two, there's basically a trade war going on between Saudi Arabia and Russia in terms of oil, so they're undercutting each other in price. So it was a really specific variety of factors going into that. I'm pretty sure oil's back into the positive, though.
And the Earth, people are now using more oil than any time in human history. Not only is the amount not going down, it's getting cheaper. Now, do you think in the last 20 years, as China industrialized and India industrialized and the amount of oil being used has went up thousands of %, do you think more dinosaurs have died?
No, it has to do with the technology available to get that oil out of places domestically. Specifically within the United States, fracking has become a huge thing. It's terrible for the environment, but that's why gas has gone down. I don't think we should do fracking, but nonetheless it is happening, and that's the reason it's gone down.
It's fucking retarded.
Stop
and then the
saying
lie of
that.
Darwin and evolution,
Jesus.
which has, it's absolutely, there's a point.
Devious Chilster with 50 bits says, also he forgets that shit like gallons of water are artificially inflated in price. True. Gotta do a Nestle stream at some point.
To it.
Although I'm pretty sure the Michigan government just told Nestle to fuck off, and that was nice.
It's to degrade the humans, to keep us all slaves, to make sure that we don't believe in God or creation or understand anything about our world, that we're just nothing more than random bacteria fucked, and here we are. They required a giant timeline because the way evolutionists keep your mind poisoned, ungravied, to keep your biscuits dry is by saying nonsense. They need to have, it took billions of years, 6,000 light years away, a star let out an impulse, and that got rid of the ozone layer. You know, the ozone layer is something you can't measure.
Okay, yes, you can, for one thing. But secondly, the ozone layer got a hole in it because of specific chemicals we were using, and then we stopped using them, so it started to heal itself. It wasn't because of a star.
And the hole is over Antarctica, a place you're not allowed to go to since 1959. You see, my light just fell down.
Devious Shelster says, new heavy metal band name, Bacterial Fuck
more
Spawn.
lies and more lies and more lies. This is one of the reasons why it's hard sometimes to decode them for people, because when you say something, they just have an immediate thing that they say. You say, well, how do you sexually select for a dorsal fin? They say, well, according to... Blah, blah. Because
yeah, he
so
probably
many of
thinks
these
you can't go to Antarctica because he's a flat earther. Flat earthers often think you can't go to Antarctica. Despite the fact that I'm pretty sure there are cruises that go by it. You can actually go, like, off the shore of Antarctica on a cruise.
Reactionary lies to hide a previous lie, which is why things become so absurd. And it's not scary. In fact, it'll free your mind. It'll free it. Just accept that you've been lied to a lot. Your teacher didn't know. A lot of these people have no idea these lies. My mom is a brilliant woman. When she made me dinosaur stuffed animals, do you think she was trying to lie to me? This is something that you have to understand to get past the hoaxes. The people in your life that introduced you to these lies did not know they were lies. So the people that started these lies are all dead. Huxley and Darwin and Sir Richard Owen, all these people, they constructed a fake world to keep everybody's mind fucked. Not only are dinosaurs not real, it's preposterous to believe these people.
Why?
And you're gonna have shills in here just say stuff like, well, my uncle, he found, so is he a liar? Yes, he's either a liar or an idiot. Well, my uncle worked on, my great uncle built part of the Saturn V rocket. Are you calling him a liar? Yeah, either he's a liar or retarded. Yes, or
Stop! Tricked. All right, that's enough of Bone Guy for the day.
A burst originating within 6...
Jesus Christ. People not believing in dinosaurs. So strange.